So that's a really smart way to be generating revenue and thinking through what target audiences are likely to pay for your organization.
Welcome, Amber, as an award-winning founder. And I know, okay, everybody knows you've got your YouTube channel, you do so much in the social entrepreneur sector, and you've talked to a lot of founders in your day. And being a founder yourself, we're going to talk today about lessons from successful nonprofit founders. So I'm very, very excited to have you on as a guest.
I'm excited too. This will be a good one.
It will, and I want to jump right in because we are going to talk about your accelerator program and a bunch of cool stuff that you're offering. But I also, well, YouTube, we got to jump right into it.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So the first question is going to be, what do some of the successful nonprofit founders that you've talked to or worked with, what do they do?
Okay, so, through YouTube and some of the work that I do offline as well and speaking and workshops, I talk to so many different founders, and you can kind of tell when people come into this idea that they're going to start a nonprofit, there are different mindsets that come out, right? So the ones where I know that they've got something special, they're likely to be successful. It's when they're thinking of the nonprofit that they're starting as part of a broader ecosystem. It's a puzzle piece in solving a social issue. It's not necessarily my nonprofit or a personal project or something that they just have a personal aspiration to do, but they're seeing the bigger picture. And I think that's really important because as sad as this is, no single nonprofit can solve every problem, right? No one nonprofit can end hunger or end homelessness. We all have to work together. And all these nonprofits who are out there already doing great work can bring different skills to complement one another.
I have seen that too. I know we should all play very well together in the sandbox. Well, I know the number one question is typically around fundraising. What have you found that they feel about fundraising?
Okay, so the organizations that are able to get some really solid traction sooner rather than later when it comes to fundraising are the ones that are thinking about their revenue model early on. And they're thinking specifically about who is likely to care about their mission and which of those stakeholders has resources. So, for example, you can take the earned income model of the Red Cross, right? You probably know them for disaster relief work or donating blood, and they can get a lot of individual donations from those efforts and through those efforts because they impact a lot of individuals. But they also have program fees that they charge for things like workshops, teaching people CPR and stuff. So that's a really smart way to be generating revenue and thinking through what target audiences are likely to pay for it. Because if someone can get that CPR certification and the funding for that workshop goes into Red Cross's ability to serve other programs, then it's kind of a win-win. So thinking on this target audience and those stakeholders who have resources early on is really smart. I can give you another example, right? So organizations that tackle homelessness are going to be out there and they're going to serve people who are experiencing homelessness, but those people, that target audience, is not the target audience that has money to fund the services. Who else out there has a stake in seeing homelessness solved in their city? Oftentimes it could be local governments, right? Governments might have their own programming, or it might be part of their strategic plan to reduce homelessness in their city. So then those governments become a stakeholder that has resources that can pay for those services when the beneficiaries of those services can't pay, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no. And I think you said it there with having a plan too, really strategically looking at all this. I see so many founders that have this beautiful idea and they're full of passion and they march forward, no plan. and then are surprised at how hard it is to fundraise later on.
There's such a common perception, and I get this a lot on my channel. I don't know if you get this on your channel, but people starting nonprofits are just unfamiliar with the nonprofit world. just assume that grants are just kind of out there hanging off of trees ready to be picked to eat. That was a terrible metaphor, but you know what I mean? Like,
I know.
the first instinct is, oh, we'll just get grants to fund the nonprofit, when you and I know that grants are possibly the most competitive funding source out there. They'd be better off spending time asking 10 people for $250 than trying to write 10 grants in the hopes of getting one for $2,500 and spending way more time doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And it's with a solid fundraising. I'm going back to what you were saying in the beginning with how successful nonprofits really are aware of what's going on in the sector. And so having that strategic plan of knowing who else is doing the work, the same type of work, who can you partner with in the community, so looking at that, building a strategic plan, but then the fund development plan, and then which leads perfectly into my next question, which is around infrastructure and capacity, kind of once you have your feet on the ground.
One mistake I see a lot of people make in the beginning is focusing completely and exclusively on delivering services. And I know this might be a controversial opinion, so just hear me out. In the beginning, you also need to be thinking through what infrastructure you're going to need to be efficient and effective at delivering those services. Some of the most successful nonprofits that I have come across and spoken to their founders in interviews and for videos of my own, they really understand what you call the true cost of operating the nonprofit. You might say it costs $10 to feed someone who's hungry and fulfill our mission of combating hunger. But that's not actually true, because you have the software costs of managing all your programs and accounting. You might have to pay for your website. There are all these costs that are part of being able to deliver your mission that you have to think about when you are putting forth that fundraising message, right? So if you have to account for all those costs, then your true cost might actually be something like $12 to feed a person. And that's okay. We have to build in the cost for that infrastructure, or else we're going to convey to the public that it costs less to fulfill these missions than it actually does. And when the public is convinced that it costs this, when we know internally it actually costs this, then we're not able to cover our costs as a nonprofit, and we're continuously in a starvation cycle. That means that our staff is underpaid and possibly even being paid poverty level wages. We can't keep our lights on, and we're constantly struggling to grow. So those organizations, those founders that think about these things in the very beginning and account for the cost of this infrastructure are going to be a lot more sustainable and strong a couple of years down the line.
Yeah. So again, planning, strategy, planning, investing in professionals, and getting the right supports. Yeah, it's the same thing. I know, I see it all the time. Yeah. So then I guess my next question would be around, if you're looking to start up a nonprofit, what is the fastest or best way to get money to do the startup?
Quick pause, and sorry to interrupt, but I want to take a quick second to offer a huge thank you to our sponsor, Click and Pledge, for supporting this video. So whether you're running peer-to-peer campaigns, text-to-give drives, creating donation pages, video fundraising, or even hosting Zoom fundraising events with their innovative Give event feature, Click and Pledge has everything you need to make your fundraising seamless and successful. It's the platform that I trust and I personally love using. With transparent pricing, lightning-fast 48-hour payouts, robust security, and seamless Salesforce integration, it's the all-in-one platform built to supercharge your fundraising efforts. So check them out and discover how Click and Pledge can take your fundraising to the next level. And now back to our video.
Well, first you got to have your budget, because you need to know that baseline, what you have to have in the very beginning to get started, right? So if you haven't created a budget yet, that is your first step, doing all that research that goes into that. And there's going to be a wide variety of answers to that question based on what that budget is. If you need $1 million, it's going to be a different strategy than if you need $2,000. For the initial startup costs, which could be a couple $1,000s when you're accounting for filing fees, website, basic program expenses, etc. Honestly, the fastest thing you can do is secure those through individual donations. Your board of directors should be heavily engaged in the process of fundraising for your organization, and maybe they're even the first donors too. In fact, that would be pretty great. If not, like I said, you've got these donation strategies where you have a plan of asking 20 people in the hopes of getting 10 people to donate $250 each. And if you can do that, that's your $2,500 that might cover those startup costs right off the bat.
Yeah, I actually like micro campaigns for new nonprofits because they really show they're a good test of what's the community going to feel about our organization. How invested do you think they'll be when we start to ask for those larger gifts?
Exactly. You've got to start somewhere.
Yeah. Okay, so here's one. What are some of the big mistakes that you've seen out there, you've seen nonprofits do?
I will speak to this from my personal experience as well. One of the first mistakes I made as a young nonprofit founder back in the day was I wanted to do everything all at once right now. And that's because I had this weird psychological sense that if I didn't do it all now, I was never going to get to do it. And of course, you learn, and as time goes, you learn you have more opportunities to do things. But I tried to do too much at once. And so what I recommend to new founders is pick one very clear, very compelling thing to do that people can grasp right away, because you've got to get that traction immediately to start building that community support and building a donor base. One example that I can offer is there's this wonderful organization in my city called the Green Chair Project. And what they do is they accept gently used furniture, they clean it up, they refurbish it, and then they place it in the homes of people transitioning out of homelessness or getting a new home after a disaster destroyed their old home. They put it in homes of people who need them. That is their mission. That is very, very specific. It is very, very niche. Now, over the years, they've expanded to do more collaborations with other nonprofits. They've worked with agencies combating homelessness, but they're so specific that it is very easy for anyone to grasp what they do, which makes it easy to donate to them, because you're not going to donate to a nonprofit if you can't even understand their mission.
Yeah, that's so true. From my personal experience with our foundation, I did the opposite. I was lazy.
Oh,
I wanted something that was so easy that I didn't have to manage, and so I ended up going through a community foundation organization that handles everything, but I lost all the control. I really should have done a little bit more work for it and would have had a lot more control for our organization. That's my biggest regret, actually, was setting it all up. Yeah.
It sounds like an interesting story for another time.
It is an interesting. A lot of our viewers know that I had lost my oldest daughter to domestic homicide, so we set up a fund after that, and all the money it's invested and then goes to charities that support domestic violence or addiction, mental health. I mean, those are all part of it on behalf of him. So, yeah, no, the viewers know. Why don't you talk a little bit about your accelerator program?
Yeah. So a couple months ago, I launched the Changemaker Accelerator after I noticed that a lot of my viewers on YouTube and who are on my newsletter were really seeming to be asking for more help and more guidance for starting a nonprofit or growing their organization after they'd started it. So the Accelerator membership that I have is super affordable. It's a community online where, like, I think I have 100 or so founders or so in there, and we're talking about their challenges. I'm offering templates and guides, so all sorts of resources to help make it faster for them to get their feet on the ground. We do a live group Q&A once a month, and it's just full of resources for people who are at that stage of starting or growing a nonprofit or social impact organization. And I say that because social impact businesses can make a difference too.
Yeah. No, I looked at it. It looked amazing, and it's very affordable. Well, thank you, Amber. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I'm going to link your YouTube video, like your channel, in the description, along with the accelerator program and a bunch more information on you.
Thank you so much.